Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Emily Smith, and I'm a global health epidemiologist here at the Duke Global Health Institute and also the School of Medicine. I'm also the author of my first book called The Science of the Good Samaritan, Thinking Bigger About Loving Our Neighbors. And I just wanted to give you a little snippet of what it's about and what you can expect from the book. I am an epidemiologist. I'm a PhD here working in global health settings like Burundi and Somaliland and northern Nigeria and in Tanzania, right at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro, which is very cool, focusing on children's health. And so surgical care and cancer care, and mainly the questions around why can't the children and the families get to care when they need to? And most of that is an equity issue. You know, they live too far away or they can't afford it. And so it's a financial poverty type intersection with children's health. And I just love, I love that part of my job. Now, at the beginning of the pandemic, I started a Facebook page called Friendly Neighbor Epidemiologist, mainly for my mom and aunts and real life neighbors on, when they were asking questions of what does it mean to flatten the curve? And do we really need to stay home? And how many pieces of or rolls of toilet paper do I really need? Which that answer was not near as much as what we all thought. But then when the pandemic started getting weirdly political, I was also, I am married to a pastor. At the time, we were in Texas, where he was a pastor at a large evangelical church in the midpoint of Texas. So it was weirdly political with the pandemic, but also there was weird religious overtones to why we shouldn't wear a mask or why we don't need to protect our neighbors. And my work and also my faith was showing me quite the opposite. And so I started talking to people on the Facebook page, on social media, about how this type of pandemic was going to require us to love our neighbors in very real ways, and got extreme solidarity from other people, but also some extreme pushback with threats at my house against the family and, pictures of guns and in real life threats that were there. And so it made me reflect that we don't know what it means to love our neighbors in very real ways. Being a person of a Christian faith, I also have anchored my own work and life around the story of the Good Samaritan, which is, the story of a man who's on the side of the road and very sick, and two people of power and privilege at the time walked by, but a Samaritan stopped. And not only did he stop, he bandaged the man up, he took him to a place to recover, and then he paid for all of it. And that's an extravagant form of neighboring. So I wanted to write the book about that, a little bit of a reflection of my own life of being a scientist, being a woman in science for sure, but also one doing global health and global health equity. But how do we live as neighbors in a world that is set up to do quite the opposite? So you'll see a lot of history in this book on equity issues, especially when it pertains to global health, the intersection of power and privilege historically and modern day, US-based and global, and how that actually impacts people's health in some very awful ways. Because we know the people on the margins of anything, poverty, healthcare access, structural inequity, structural racism, have some worse health outcomes. And what can we do about it if you have privilege or even if you don't? So I was trying to disentangle those words that I found during the pandemic, at least to my audience, were really hard to grapple with. Words like solidarity, structural racism, inequities, and they can be hot topic buttons, especially now that we're in an election year. So I wrote a book about that. The beginning of it is a little bit more of a memoir of how I got started in science, especially a woman in science. I talk about that and what that means, what it still means. And then it's disentangling those systemic racism, structural violence, solidarity, those type of words for us to really understand. And then the last part of the book is then how do we live as a neighbor in today's world? Again, that is set up to do quite the opposite. Hopefully it makes you laugh. because it is a bit more of a memoir. There is some faith overtones, but certainly it is not structured to be only a Christian faith. All faiths and even no faith wants to be a good neighbor. And you can see that Good Samaritan sentiment throughout. So it's not only a faith book, but it is, if that is part of your flavor, just because you'll hear that as being my story. And it also has at the very end some practical ways of how to be a neighbor in today's world, including what to do with our kids. I'm a mom of two, just turned teenagers. So how do we raise good neighbors in a world that I think is even harder to do that the younger you are? So thank you for listening. I hope that you like it. I really hope it challenges you, but that it is not abrasive. It can challenge in a way that is friendly, but also will make you laugh, hopefully along the way. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.